and continue with this one. This one, we gotta use a pretty good amount to make sure that it gets all the way inside that deep space inside the lingual, and make sure that we drain most of it out. Now, another technique to get the excess separator off the model is to go over to the sink, use hot water, or relatively hot water, gentle stream of water, and rinse off the excess. So it looks like that. And I'm going to take my brush and gently wipe off some of the excess down here. Now, it's a pretty deep cavity in there, so I don't think I'll be able to get it out with my brush. What I can also use is the air nozzle right over here, and gently spray off the excess separator. As you can see it coming out. You don't want that to stay in there because it will dry and occupy some space, and then you'll have space under your acrylic base instead of having a nice tight fit with your acrylic against the cast. I'm just going to go back to the other two, and I'm just going to use my brush to wipe off the excess separator here. You really don't want excess separator. There's a little piece of stone there. I don't know if you can see it. Make sure that that doesn't get left behind and makes its way into your acrylic base, because it's going to be a bit of a hassle trying to repair it. Just going to clean off my brush and then wipe off some of the excess separator here. Do you remember the tooth that I mentioned earlier that broke off the central? It's actually embedded in here, so it's going to work to my advantage right in there. I'm not going to try to take that out, but I'm going to leave it. And there's a little bit of a drip right here. I want to make sure that I have a thin coat of separator throughout, and one more to go. I'm agitating the separator and trying to force it all the way into those fine little spaces. And again, I can let it drain, but it will only drain so much. So what I'm going to do is go back to the sink. Just a gentle stream of water, rinse off the excess. Now these flasks are still hot. I'm not going to pack acrylic into this yet. The flasks have to totally cool. Have to totally cool. And at which point you can mix the appropriate amount of heat cure acrylic, whichever you're going to use, and pack acrylic into the flasks. I'm just going to go back and make sure, and just, I always like to give it just a final coat wherever I can. Just a little clean piece of the paper here. Wipe off a little bit of the excess separator. As you can see, I'm just trying to get it out. And then just give it a final coat wherever I can. Obviously, I can't get in here, but as much as I can. All around. So it has that shiny finish. There's a piece of stone here that I want to scrape off. That's good. Go back to some of the one that I separated at the beginning, and then again just give it a very fine coat, not too much. You can see I'm wiping a lot of the excess separator off my brush. So 2 coats, I think it's just the perfect amount. Of course, it all depends on the consistency of the separator. If your separator has been sitting around dehydrating, or most of the moisture has evaporated from the separator, then it's going to be a very thick coat. So there's there's one there. Go back to this one. And again, I'm going to wipe off the excess and just a very thin coat. So it gives me that glossy look on the model surface, which tells me that I have an adequate amount of separator and I won't have any problems stone adhering to the acrylic. Something like that. I hope you can see that on camera. So it's rather glossy. And one more. This one still has some residue from the original application. So I'm going to take my brush, just kind of wipe it off, and come back in here and pick up the excess amount so it doesn't dry, because if it dries, then it occupies space. So just the little amount that I picked up, I'm going to use just to kind of smear around. And again, a nice soft bristle brush goes a long way. So again, I have a nice glossy look to all the finish, sharp margins. As you can see, the difference in stone. This is regular dental stone, and this is half and half mix. So I like to use regular dental stone just to pick up all the fine detail of the wax up. And at this point, everything looks good. My flasks are starting to cool off. If I'm in a rush, I can use a fan to gently blow some air on the flasks and cool them off, or simply just place them a little bit upright, just like so. Just be careful they don't slide off. And that way, air gets throughout, all around the flask, and it tends to cool down a little bit faster versus leaving it flat on the bench like that. So if you have it upright, it'll cool down a little bit faster. I'm just going to put that here just to balance it a little bit so it doesn't fall off. So in the next video, what we're going to do, we are going to roughen the back of the teeth to make sure that we have a good bond between the acrylic teeth and the acrylic itself, and pack the case.